I'm Jill Starr with Lifesavers Wild Horse Rescue, and we're a horse rescue that specializes in Mustangs, horses that were born wild in America. And right now I am in Fallon, Nevada, where in July we rescued 169 horses, wild horses, from a livestock auction where they were going to be sent to slaughter. And we kind of made history, and we showed up at this livestock auction intending to purchase every single horse away from the killer buyers, and that's what we did. Since July, there has been another couple of livestock auction horse sale days that we also attended, and saved as many of those horses that we could too. And then most recently we took in some of the Indian reservation horses that were going to also be sold to slaughter. So we've been so busy since July, and just here in Nevada, Lifesavers has rescued more than 400 horses.
And you're seeing some of them right here, folks. This is, these are all the horses. How many would you say are here that you've rescued?
That you're looking at right now? About 150, I'd say.
Oh my gosh.
Of mares and foals. And these are the ones that came from the Paiute reservation nearby. And they had just too many horses on their reservation, so they rounded them up and just sold them to whoever would buy them. And then we managed to intercede.
And so how are you doing financially with these horses? I mean, what kind of help can anyone give you?
It is so expensive to feed these. Now, we're just in a temporary facility. This is not where they're going to live. But we needed a place to hold them until we could find a sanctuary or some permanent homes for these guys. Right now, it costs us about $6,000 for every 100 horses.
Oh my God!
Now we have, back in Lancaster, California, where our main ranch is, we have like 300 horses there too. So we have a lot of mouths to feed, and it's become very difficult. And I'm just constantly begging for donations to help us feed. But we're also really trying to find homes for these horses. The younger ones we hope to adopt out to individuals who will give them a good home, train them, and enjoy them for the rest of their lives. And the older ones that may not be as appropriate for adoption, we hope that we'll find natural habitat sanctuary that they can go to.
Okay, so are you looking for land and donations for land? Like if a person who hears this show wants to send $1,000 to help you buy an acre of land somewhere, is that something that you would like to promote?
We are absolutely asking for help to buy land, and it probably does cost about $1,000 an acre, although we're going to need lots of acres to put all these horses out on. But yes, we are actively fundraising so that we can buy land that will give these horses the freedom that they were born to live.
And of course, there's a lot of ranches around Santa Barbara and Spokane area, and so if there's any ranchers out there that love horses, you're the person to contact. And what do you charge for adoption fee?
It depends on what we're doing as far as adoption, how much we're going to charge. If we're going to be specific about these horses, we're really only charging about $100 each to cover the processing costs of the microchip that we put in them before we send them out, and the vaccinations and the brand inspection and all the health papers that they need to travel here and there. And we're really not trying to make any money off of them, but we're trying not to go backwards on it either.
Oh, right, exactly. And the microchip, does that help you keep the horses from going to slaughter in the future? Is there any, does that help that at all, or is it just a tracking mechanism like a tattoo?
We hope that it will help protect them, and it is an easy way to keep track of their identification. And over the years, if they end up someplace like an animal shelter, or I'm not sure a slaughterhouse would care if they were microchipped, but kind of looking forward into the future, that I hope that would be more become a respected way to identify horses.
Right, exactly. So these are all mares, folks, and they're babies that would have gone to slaughter. The horse killers are at the Fallon livestock auction, I understand, and they're buying them up for literally $10 to $15, sometimes $100, and they go down to Mexico or up to Canada, and they can get a lot more. And so it's a ruthless, horrible business, and to an animal that we owe so much to, and to such a spiritual friend as the horse is, you know. So to me, you are sort of the female Schindler that is trying to save all these horses, and it must just hurt so much to not be able to save all of them when you go to these auctions, and to have to watch so many go to the horse killers. Is that correct?
It does. It breaks my heart as much as it breaks anybody's. I do understand that we can't save them all. I mean, we have pretty much met our limit now, what we can afford to do realistically. So, yeah, we're trying to also educate and change attitudes, and prevent this from being the constant cycle of just culling horses and killing them, culling and killing. There are other ways to manage horses, so we're advocating that. But in the meantime, there are these precious souls that if there's anything I can do for them, I am compelled.
Well, they're amazing. And, folks, all these horses were wild. There's so much open land out there, as I keep saying to my listeners, all this open space where nothing is there. And there could be herds of horses. How beautiful, how strong, and how American. And what a tourist draw it would be to bring people from all over the world, just to be able to see these vast plains and areas where horses and buffaloes could roam, as they once did long ago. And instead we have these empty areas that go for miles, vast areas, as you can see in the background, all these mountains, and it just goes on where they could be. And they thrive in this kind of dry, almost desert-like climate. It's amazing what survival horses we have here. The strongest endurance horses in the world are the Mustang. And they say that is happening as we speak. So we will continue to watch and see. I want to thank you so much, Jill Starr, for your incredible work.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Can you speak to us of why you are here at this Summit of the Horse here, where they're discussing slaughtering horses? Why are you here at this summit?
The reason that we are here, Christine Soliday and myself, are to bring an awareness about the medicine wheel ceremony that's going to be represented in Washington. And because of the horse people in Washington from the Yakima tribe, the horse coalition there, I forget exactly the name of them, to Mother Earth, inhabitants, to the black, white, yellow, and red nations, about doing prayers and thoughts in ceremonies in circles, huge circles, 200 miles across, 1,200 miles across, known as Native American medicine wheel ceremonies that heals the web of life, known as grandmother's spider's web that's spun around the earth. And the sacred sites charge the earth with electrical energy that promotes a beautiful environment with water, gentle winds, food, resources, abundances, by giving gratitude to all of life force creations with the songs of love, or the healing songs known as spirit songs, that are done in circle ceremonies known as spirit dances. And we sing to the spirit of the plants, which is energy life force of all creation, whether it's an animal, bird, mammal, snake, or like dolphins, whales, horses, eagles, birds, insects, everything in creation. So they all have songs that we have in their tribal nations, or the red nations, or all nations of the world, of the black, white, and yellow, and red, are all tribal nations and are indigenous to the earth. So prophecies say that we are the ones that will reharmonize the earth with sounds, tones, and vibrations, which comes from our sacred instruments, and drums, and flutes, and gourds, and harps, and crystal bowls, and all the medicine to heal the earth is our thoughts. Our thoughts is the medicine that puts thoughts out that heals all things. So our medicine that we would like to heal a plant with is our thought. And the thought that we put out is what returns and takes place. And then we balance Mother Nature and heal her the best we can. So right now, what we're doing is promoting medicine wheel ceremonies, and I've gifted you a tape, or we have gifted you this tape about healing Mother Earth sacred sites, which is the Big Bear Medicine Wheel, which brings a message about healing the Yellowstone supervolcano on May 8, 2004, and on November 15, 2004, another medicine wheel ceremony that was 200 miles across, where the Grand Teton Medicine Wheel ceremony, which is known as a magnificent 19 plus 1 equals 20, was 20 sacred sites that are 600 miles away from the powerful sacred site known as the Grand Tetons in Wyoming. 600 miles north is Mount Rainier to the northwest, and then there's 19 other points 600 miles away from the center point known as Grand Tetons peaks in Wyoming, where we live, and we are the stewards to take care of the earth underneath the heart of the rose people. So the Shoshone peoples follow the rose underneath the name of peace, and those who wouldn't follow peace would suffer the thorns of negative thoughts, emotions, or actions that doesn't serve a purpose to make us feel happy. Those are the thorns of false ways of doing things, known as forgetting the natural laws of nature, known as the original instructions. So we've been called upon through dreams and visions and messages through our sacred ancestors who have come to us always, and the chiefs of the past had always communicated with the spiritual leaders of the earth, and they did these ceremonies known as ghost dances, spirit dances, circle ceremonies that were done with prayers and thoughts that we would come back and bring an awareness, and our ancestors would return, and then the knowledges of the information would go back to all of the cultures so we could balance the earth, because those four nations and cultures represent the balancing of nature, because the black, white, yellow, and red represent the earth, the wind, the fire, and water knowledges. But we're separate from each other now. But now we're coming back together, and those four nations will pick up the four corners of the earth like a blanket with the black, white, yellow, and red on four corners, and we'll balance the earth as we go into 2012 and 13.
In the prophecy, it states that the wild horses will run free in the end times between the fourth world and the fifth world, and that their hooves will reharmonize and retune the web of life. So these horses are so much more important than anyone realizes, as well as the prophecies state that the earth will shed her dress 3 times between now and the new world of 2012, which will look like volcanoes, earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, and that no stone will be left unturned, as is stated in biblical prophecy. And in this time, it is known that a lot of our electronics and our modes of transportation will no longer work, and the horse will become our partner again. So these horses that they believe are unwanted and extra are so needed and so necessary at this time to save them and protect them, for they will be the partners that lead us into the new world. And as an animal communicator who's open to and speaking with all of the different species on the planet, it is my knowing that if everyone in this room could communicate with these animals in the way that I can, that they could no longer consider that as an option, that they are our family members, they are our ancestors, they are the wise ones. Just as the red nations carry the fail-safe key through their sacred songs and dances, the horses also carry the key to reharmonizing the web of life. For the prophecies say that we will put the prayers on their hoofprints, and that they will run free, they will break down the fences and reharmonize all of the world for us, so that we may have the golden age, the New Jerusalem, peace on earth that's prophesied. There was a story told in the Red Nations about the smallpox that we're all aware came in on the blankets to wipe out the tribes when the white settlers were coming into the areas. And there was a tribe that remembered this wisdom. So they went to one of the horses in their tribe and they asked its permission to put sacred symbols and prayers on it, and asked it to run in a circle around their village for 3 days to protect them from this. And off the horse went in happy compliance to be asked its permission and given a sacred duty to protect the people. And it ran wild in the circle for 3 days, and no one in that village was affected by smallpox, even though everyone in the villages around was. And I think that's a profound story to come up to the surface at this time, that there might be something else that we're not seeing, another purpose for these beings. They're not here to be our food, just as we are not here to be each other's food. It is a time to turn away from cannibalism and know that all animals are related in our one family, and to honor the plants and ask their permission as well, and to give prayers and blessings to the plants to provide enough food for all of us, including the animals. So the goal of bringing Blue Thunder and myself here was a vision through Chief Seattle to come and speak to the nations that are surrounding the area of the medicine wheel that we're going to be creating on spring equinox of 2011. It'll be a 3-day ceremony over the 19th, 20th, and 21st of March of 2011. And to ask them to consider coming forward with their sacred songs and their sacred dances to help us reharmonize the web of life, and that this ceremony would be an example to the entire world of the healing that can take place through these ceremonies, and would further a larger ceremony that we've been given a vision to do, which is a 4,000-mile medicine wheel ceremony to take place on fall equinox of 2011, the center point being Costa Rica, and extending all the way north up into Ontario, Canada, into the Hopi lands, down into Peru, and that this ceremony would connect the Americas back into one. That the Americas are the New Jerusalem. This is where the peace on earth will start and spread to the rest of the world. So it is our note thousands of people will come and gather on these points and sing and dance and pray and intend with us in March, and that these horses may be a part of that ceremony and that they be honored as well. So we come to give them a voice. We come not to fight, not to point fingers of blame or say that anyone is wrong or right, but to ask them to consider a new perspective, the spiritual perspective, the sacred perspective that's been forgotten. And so in that is our reason for being here at the Horse Summit and our reason for being in existence. So.
Now these are Return to Freedom's stallions that she's rescuing for bloodlines, to carry on the bloodlines of the wild horses, because the BLM is wiping out our bloodlines so fast that we have to start saving them privately. So that is what she's doing. She's gathering all these very special stallions with their special characteristics, and to preserve our wild horse heritage, while the BLM just tries its best to eliminate it. And the BLM will deny this, but unfortunately they are moving horses so quickly that at the rate they're going, we just won't have any more. These people are really struggling, so if you go to returntofreedom.org and want to donate $10 a month, if we could get 10,000 people to donate to Return to Freedom and lifesavers.org, just $10 a month, and you get 10,000 people doing that, there you have $100,000 right there. And it works. In fact, it's the small donations that are really the ones that carry these organizations through.
My name is Nick Ilya, and I am the property manager here for this facility where you see in the back where these horses are. This facility used to be a private holding facility for an independent contractor that contracted wild horses for the BLM. Here, the horses were brought in, taken off the range. And from then, we go now back to the beginning, which is horse slaughter. Horse slaughter started years ago when it was real small, and most of the food was used for animals and dog food, wild, like tigers and zoo animals. And that started in over 50 years ago. Now, Since then, this has escalated. It went from animal food to human food. So now the biggest concern, which has happened and escalated, is all the amounts of wild horses that is out in the mountains that say are there, destructing the environment and everything else. Well, how did it get this way? 15, 20 years ago, I managed property next to the Litchfield Holdings facility for the BLM. So then there would be buckaroos that would come in and want to do roundups. Well, according to the government, the BLM, there was no money to do them. So these roundups weren't done, the studs weren't castrated, and in simple terms, they kept breeding and the population increased. And as the population increased, the demand for horse meat in foreign countries escalated. So here, right now, you've got a gigantic market out there for horse meat. So consequently, the only way you're going to get a horse is, right now, they put a temporary hold on slaughter, which is a temporary hold and is still in effect, which that puts the wild horse in a pretty bad position. Because tomorrow or any day that the BLM, the Department of Agriculture, which gives the Department of Interior and the BLM what to do, could start the slaughtering again. There are slaughterhouses right now ready to slaughter these horses. And the reason they're out there, is the giant demand that's sitting right there now for horse meat. You take, like back here at this feedlot, where the horses were, a facility where the horses were in here under a private contractor for the BLM. Here, the horses, when they were here, at times before the slaughter bill was stopped for temporary, they were selling them out, wild horses, to buyers for $100. And at that same time, a beef animal was costing you close to $1,000. There was a gigantic amount of money made. So easy and quick. So once people get a hold of money, it's hard to get away from it. And now, which the factors that the wild animal has got against them is the gigantic demand for their meat, the profit that people are making off the meat. So consequently, the horse right now is in a pretty bad predicament. And there's thousands of groups that have been working trying to preserve these horses. But what they've been doing is just been going in one ear and out the other. The BLM listens, but that's as far as they go. And it's just like I've seen here. The countless horses that came into this facility, for no reason at all, as you can look now and you can see, they use the excuse that the horses are starving to death. These horses here just came in off of some ranges, and you could look at them. If they look like they're starving, they've been, like I said, eating filet mignon. So the excuse is, which is a poor excuse. The last 2 years, they're doing all these roundups. We've had some of the best grazing areas in the last 2 years for feed we've had in a long time. And if you can look at the horses that are coming in, they're big, they're fat, they're not fending for food. They got all the food they need out there. But the reason they're coming in, because they want to get them out. And that's the worst thing that the BLM is doing right here, right now, to the people in the state of Nevada. There's kids that need jobs, there's farmers that need to raise hay to feed these horses. And what are they doing? taking them all out and taking them back to Nebraska, out of a nice area like here in Fallon, these mountains, which the snow is not that heavy. I mean, it's warmer, and take them up and put them back in there where there's snow and cold, and yet take the food out of the people here in the state of Nevada that need the jobs just for money. There's no reason. There's no reason whatsoever why these wild horses need to be taken out of this state. If they need some feed, there's feed which is within 20, 50 miles, which we did years ago. Go out and dump feed out for them, bales of hay, and let them eat for a couple of months that they're. Now here you got this BLM ground, which is taxpayers' money. They will not let the appropriated ground that was appropriated already for wild horses. So what they are doing is taking these horses and going out of the state of Nevada, which is hurting so much for money already, taking them to another state and paying somebody to feed these horses. When you got all this ground out here that belongs to the taxpayers, here you got taxpayers that can't hardly even feed their family, and then you got the government taking these horses back there and paying some corporation big money to feed them. Is that right? Is that law?
Now, is there any way that the public can trace horses that the BLM has and ships over there? I've heard rumors from different feedlot people that some of their BLM horses are shipped out and that's it. No one can follow. I'm trying to find out how I, as a citizen, can get records of where these horses are going. I want to be able to count them. I want to make sure that they're not going to slaughter. What does one do? Do you have any ideas about that?
The one thing you need to do right now is the people of the United States to see what is going on here. There's no reason whatsoever for these horses to leave Nevada or wherever they are at. All they're doing is just making somebody rich. And I can say this for right here, what happened here at the feedlot here. There was the poor contractor that was in here. He did a good job. He lived by all the rules and everything else. So when the person tells me that before the bid has even been put out, that he wasn't going to get the contract, and after it was awarded, he got the contract, and he got the contract with the facility wasn't even built. So you tell me that's the way the rules are?
You mean you're saying that the man who ran this facility here, he bid for a contract, and then he got the contract?
No, he did not get the contract.
Oh, he did not.
He lost the contract to this other facility, which is tied in with these other people.
Okay.
And so that was one loose end they had, was this feedlot here, because people could drive by and see what was going on. Now in this new facility, it's closed off where nobody can see what's going on. They can do there whatever they please. And yet they're still paying taxpayers' money. It's just like taxpayers when this facility was running here, which was no reason to have these horses here, could have been out there, was costing the taxpayer sometimes as much as $2,000-3,000, and when the slaughter on was selling them for $100. And a beef animal was costing $1,000. Do you realize the money that was made? It's time somebody opens their eyes and see what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
All right, these are wild horses dwelling just east of the Carson River and east of Carson City and the foothill area of the northern Pinette Mountain Range, magnificent range that is their legal home. 26 miles.
I'm gonna let people see where they live. Now this is really hard country, isn't it? I mean, it would take a real survivor to survive in this. What's the temperatures in the winter?
It can get down to 10, 15 below zero here in winter, even colder, especially with wind chill. And yeah, these are amazing animals. They're coming over to visit us now.
Oh, they are? And Craig Downer, you are a wildlife ecologist.
Yes.
The spokesman for the wild horses.
Yeah.
How long have you been studying these horses?
I've been studying since I was a boy, a teenager, so that makes it, 50 years or so.
And
observing them and then studying them as a biologist. I have been making observations. I wrote a book, Wild Horses, Living Symbols of Freedom.
Okay, you're covering them all.
Get the book and my
Okay.
new book.
Now, what would you say about this herd? This is a family herd, you say?
Yeah, this is a band of what they call a harem with the stallion, mares, and then young colts and young of the year. So here we have 3 9 horses and these stunning white horses. We have quite a variety. We have a smoky colored horse. We have a smoky colored horse. We have 2 stunning white horses. One has a little dapple effect, the smaller white. Then we have a real tarpon looking horse over here with the thick neck and the bristly mane over on the left. We have a grayish streaked horse, amazing variety. And then sort of a brownish roan horse in the back with some unique blazes on his forehead. Boy, horses are magnificent, very expressive animals. See the white muzzle on this one over here?
Yes.
That's a real ancient characteristics, was common in the tarpons of Europe and Central Asia, and still comes up. You see, these animals, after a generation or 2 or 3, many very wild, adapted, even what people call primitive traits start coming out, like the stripes on their hocks and stripes on their backs. But isn't it wonderful to see them here, just free?
It's wonderful. It's just, there's something so beautiful. There's such a spiritual connection between horse and man.
Yeah, and this is their own raison d'etre, reason of being.
Now look at how they eat, folks. You see, this is what they eat. Just so that you know, they're very gentle. And they just kind of crop.
And they don't linger, they go on. They keep moving on. That's their nature.
Yeah.
Getting some really nice light on them. They eat the grasses, and they do take a bit of the shrubs, but...
And none of this looks like it's been trampled, or, they go gently amongst the brush. They don't just tear right through it.
No, that's a distortion put out by their enemies to try to discredit them and justify their elimination. But in fact, they actually enhance the ecosystem because their droppings fertilize the soil and give humus to it. And in their droppings, they seed many more plants as compared with the ruminant grazers.
So you're saying that the ruminant grazers digest the seeds, and so they don't restore the land.
Yeah, not all of them, but many more than do the post-gastric gesters, which are the horses and burros. Yeah.
Now, where's the stallion, do you think, amongst this?
All right, he would probably that real stout one that had the tarpon-like look. That's the, I would say, the stallion.
And how long do these groups stay together? They just keep growing, is that it?
The young ones usually go off, and this is a natural way of preventing inbreeding. And in the spring, after at least a year, then especially the young males will be either go off on their own or be driven out. Sometimes the females will stay a bit longer, but they too will go off and pair with other young stallions and form bands. So it's a beautiful process ensuing over time. And all man has to do is let it happen as it's been going on for millions of years. What right does man have to stop this beautiful process of life unfolding over time?
And look at folks, how empty this land is. I mean, there's so much room for horses all over the United States. All of the horses that don't have homes could be released on our lands, private and public, and just you know, as they allow antelope and deer. I mean, who is this person at the top that makes these ridiculous rules and tells us that we can't utilize all this empty space for these marvelous beings? And why can't they put, you know, troughs and wells? And they do it for mining, they do it for cattle, they do it for houses, but when it comes to something beautiful and free, oh no, there has to be a huge battle.
Yeah, there's people that are just so narrow-minded and so greedy that they resent something that's right and natural and free. They resent that, and that is a sick mentality, and we must not let it prevail in our government as it is at present. This is a sick mentality.
It is.
We have to stand up and say, no, this is not right. You already have 90% of everything, or 95% of everything. Why do you want 100%?
Well, they want every last little bit.
Yeah.
That's what that mentality is. And so there's nothing left for the working person to enjoy that he has to pay for. You know, he has to pay for everything now, and then they up that price. So
they try and make everything into a commodity, don't they?
Yeah.
It's just not right. Well, isn't this a beautiful setting? Man living in harmony with nature. But you know, see the dusky dark horse over here with the thick mane, black mane on the right? That's the stallion. Because they usually stand off a little ways and keep an eye on their mares and the young ones, and they're protectors. Their chief role is protectors. So I would say that is the stallion over there on the right. He has the thick arched neck too, which is a masculine characteristic.
I'm so glad I can bring this to you, viewers, so you can see this little tribe of horses and their family structures. These are other nations. They're other people in different forms. And we need to protect them as we need to protect ourselves and stand together and stop this voracious government mentality that is consuming our energy, our strength, our beauty, and everything we've worked so hard for in this country to preserve. We mustn't let them take it away.
Isn't that a beautiful little colt?
And if we do stand up, they will respect you for it. And they will back down, but you've got to do it before they get too powerful, or it's too late. Now that's a little brown, that looks like a little almost foal right there, that little dark one in front of us.
Yeah, it's a colt. I wouldn't call it a foal.
Okay, a little colt.
It's a colt.
Well, folks, these are your horses. They belong to you and your children on your public lands. And the mining and the cattle industry and the energy industry is gobbling up your space and taking it all away. They are also talking about solar plants in our public lands, and they could put solar on all the rooftops in the cities in Reno, and not only would it save a lot of energy of transmission costs, but it would save a lot of open space. So I hope when you make your comments to the BLM, when you go to their site and make comments, tell them that they can utilize rooftops. They don't need to build these solar plants out on our public lands.
Yeah, which they're doing, and they're using this as an excuse to get rid of horses.
Yeah.
They're out herd areas, like in the Caliente.
Yeah. And then they won't want you there because they'll say it's security reasons. And pretty soon you won't even have this open space. So we need to speak up.
Yep, sure do. Yeah, I think as a citizen in Nevada, I should promote that solar rooftop solar panels rather than going out into the beautiful wilderness and sucking up all the water.
Right.
Let's use our rooftops. And let's give each homeowner a little income.
Well, in case listeners didn't know, in 1982, under the Carter administration, Arco Solar and all the gas companies were given tax credits for looking into alternatives. And so Arco Solar had the rooftop plan in place. And they were going to put solar panels on all the rooftops across America. And
It should have happened.
it should have
It would have been a
happened.
different America today.
That's
had it
right.
happened.
And that, yeah, and Reagan came in and killed it.
Oh, he was such a dince.
He was when he, yeah.
No sense of ecological.
No, he didn't. He really set this.
He was just perverse. Let's
He
call it.
set it back on that particular issue. He really set things back. Well, this is just wonderful to
Nice
see.
lighting, you know. It's
Yeah.
Early morning light,
Isn't it lovely to see our wild horses
peacefully grazing.
and that they don't run away from us? So many animals hide in terror, but these animals, they still remember and have a link to us somehow. And it's so wonderful to be able to experience this.
Sure is.
And this is the Stony Cabin Valley Horse Herd Management Area in Battle Mountain, Nevada. And you're looking at some of your wild horses. Now, I'm looking for trampled bushes, folks, because that's one of the things the ranchers are saying, that the horses trample the bushes, but I can't see any. I'm really looking hard. I see a footprint here, right here, but it just missed this little bush here. This bush is intact. All these bushes are intact. If you get my meaning, if you get my drift. Again, here's a hoof print, but it's not on the vegetation itself. Here's another hoof print, but it's not on the vegetation, is it? And all around are hoof prints, but they're not on the vegetation. Do you see what I'm trying to point out to you? The big lie that they're destroying the environment, they're trampling down vegetation. Well, I point out to you all these footprints and all these bushes around intact. We are gathering evidence to see whether or what they're saying is true. And this is one of the big factors, isn't it? Isn't that what the cattle ranchers are saying, Craig?
They'll often say that they.
I can't
destroy
hear
the
you, Craig.
vegetation.
Can
They'll
you
say
see?
they destroy the vegetation, pull the grass up by the roots, but it's actually cattle and sheep that do that with their tongues. Because they don't have upper incisors.
Okay. But
Rarely will a horse do that.
But I'm talking about trampling the bush right now. Do you see any trampled? I need a wildlife ecologist to verify that what I'm saying is true here, even though I have visual. Do you see any? Maybe you can point
There
out
are
some.
times when they will paw at bushes to get grass,
Right.
and when there's snow also, they'll paw through the
Right.
snow and
But
break
here,
the ice.
do you see trampled? I always see a footprint here. I don't see a footprint here.
They tend to step around the bushes in general.
Okay, so there we have a wildlife ecologist verifying what you and I are seeing here. There again, a footprint there, but not on the bush. So, another example, folks. Now here's an area heavily trotted by a little foal and its mother, but not on the bush. Why isn't it being trampled here? Why didn't they just carelessly step here? Because horses are ecologists. They were born into nature to be so.
My name is Craig.
Saying how it was totally bogus and
And these are not, they're setting these horses up for inbreeding because there's too few left.
Hi. Dusty Miller.
For inbreeding because there's too few left.
Hi, I'm Dusty Miller. I used to work at BLM in Northern California. I didn't have anything to do with horses, but I was an archaeologist for BLM, and I encountered over the years that I worked there really nasty practices.
Can you give some examples?
Okay, here's an example. I wrote a report for a clearance road for a tree extraction road that they wanted to put in across BLM lands, and it was going to be done by the National Forest. And I got all the paperwork from the forest supposedly clearing the area for archaeological clearance, which you have to do legally by mandate. And it was all nonsense. And the guy was totally incompetent, had no idea what he was doing. He didn't even know his own certification number. It was how bad it was. So I wrote this 6-page analysis and turned that in. And then the next thing that happened was there was a big meeting in our district office to decide what to do with my report. And I was not invited to the meeting. I was sent on a wild goose chase 4 hours north to look at some pile of obsidian that somebody had put there the day before. It had 3 different kinds of obsidian in it, so no Native American ever put it there. And that was just to get me out of the office while they were having the meeting to decide what to do with my report, saying how it was totally bogus and had to be redone and everything. But one guy committed suicide. He couldn't handle it anymore. Nasty business in the office. Of course, I didn't have anything to do with horses, so I can't speak to that. But it was essentially anything that BLM and the Forest Service wanted to do by way of resource extraction, they got to do because it was being run by old foresters who couldn't forest anymore, and they sort of became bureaucrats. So it was not a nice scene.
Well, thank you so much for that information. Tell us, what do you think about the horse slaughter and the BLM roundups?
I think it's one of the major tragedies in the natural history of the planet. Horses evolved in North America, disappeared for a while until the Spanish brought them back, but they belong here more than we do, and we should be managing for preservation, not for removing them from the land so that you can run cattle and other destructive beasts on the land. Horses have been here nicely for hundreds of years, living ecologically, and when you start to run cattle, the cattle destroy the soil and the roots of the plants, and they rip out the roots, and so they just eliminate the resource, the grasslands. But the horses can live nicely on the grasslands without destroying it, and it comes back every year to the horses. So when you
my name's Cindy McDonald, and I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am the publisher of American Herds blog.
Okay, and why don't you tell us, Cindy, what you want to tell the public about what's going on with our horses?
Well, I got into this about 4.5 years ago due to a newspaper article that announced that they were going to take about 1,000 wild horses out of our area. I had grown up in this area my whole life and had been used to bands and herds of horses periodically scattering across the valley, and I found that number extremely hard to believe, that there was actually really 1,000 horses here to take. So at that time, the BLM lady in charge of the proposal basically asked the public to become involved, but that they didn't want to hear anything about emotional arguments, that they were looking for scientific data that could help them in the management of wild horses and burros and multiple use. And so at that time, I didn't even know who BLM was. I didn't know what multiple use meant. I had no idea that wild horses and burros were even managed. And so that began my journey, and I began studying every aspect of the Bureau of Land Management and all the different things that they manage, which includes livestock, oil and gas, sometimes timber, as well as horses and burros. And I think that after researching like all these different things, wildlife and all the things that we get out of the land, what I would like America to know is that there's something seriously wrong with BLM's numbers, with BLM's books, with BLM's records. And I have been trying for the last 2 to 3 years to get some sort of congressional and media attention, somebody to start looking through their books. And I'm asking people to basically ask their congressman, we want an investigation because something's wrong with their numbers. Year after year, no matter how many horses and burros they take off the land, they keep coming back and saying the same amount is there or more. And the numbers just do not jive. So I've developed some systems. I have studied their statistics rigorously. And I've talked to many BLM personnel, a lot of different field offices, from the range cons all the way up to the National Program Office. And I've learned a lot about how BLM does things, and that as near as, from everything that they've taught me and all of their records, it seems to me that there has to be much less wild horses and burros on public lands than they keep reporting. And nobody seems to be really investigating or looking into this, but the numbers themselves are so scary that I'm very concerned about what is really left on the range, what's really free roaming. So I think that's the most important thing is that this program, the BLM, which is part of the Department of the Interior, it's actually a sub-branch. The Department of the Interior is the agency that was responsible for the Deepwater Horizon disaster this last spring. And they have a hold on public lands and public resources. And through the years, there have been multiple documentations from the Government Accountability Office, the Office of Inspector General, and a wide variety of journalistic, various investigative reports that basically say the DOI is considered one of the most corrupt government agencies in our nation. And because the Wild Horse and Burro program is relatively small, it seems to be just escaping, floating underneath the real critical eye. But considering their history and whether you're talking minerals and management or oil and gas, they've got a very long history of things that are not right, and things are not right with the Wild Horse and Burro program. And before a single more Mustang or burro is pulled off public lands, there needs to be an investigation because something's wrong. That was quite the rant. Back to your question about horses going to slaughter, we don't have any proof. But one of the reasons we don't have any proof is because BLM will not let any member of the public near anything. That we've asked for cameras on helicopters that conduct gathers. We've asked for cameras on the trucks. We can't get into long-term holding. We get very limited access to short-term holding. They basically manage this program like it's a classified military operation instead of, something as simple as these are natural resources. These are just horses and burros.
We noticed that today.
Yes. So it's very disconcerting, and it's also, you don't realize how much they seem to be treating the public like the enemy. Since 2008, they started another Freedom of Information Act request that was done after BLM made this announcement that they were going to euthanize all these, they were considering euthanizing all these animals. They put together a team and they had these conference calls and they were trying to discuss various options, and if we had to euthanize horses, what we would do it. And we found some very revealing information in that stuff. In fact, at the top or the cover page, it said for internal use only, not for public release. Okay, but we did get them through the Freedom of Information Act request, and some of the things were, one of the things we noticed is they began referring to anybody who was interested in wild horse and burros and the program that was not 100% supportive of their gather and removal techniques as eco-terrorists. There was one of the lines in there that they were discussing that if they had to do mass euthanasia on horses and burros, that they would have to shield and hide to secret locations from the public, from Congress, and from the media. Okay, so there was a lot of other really heavy things. In fact, there was that was in there. One of them was,
and that's what they're doing now. They're hiding and shielding these horses, saying to the public that we're not going to euthanize them, but they're disappearing, public.
Well, we certainly can't get very much access to them, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other things that I wanted to mention that makes this highly suspicious is this has kind of been forgotten, but starting in 1992, a grand jury investigation was launched in Texas, and it was called the Del Rio investigation. And it was actually initiated by BLM's own law enforcement officers who had stumbled onto what they believed was possibly a Mustang to slaughter ring. And there was 4 years that this grand jury investigation was going on. The law enforcement officer, according to the historical records, gathered over 3,000 pieces of evidence of BLM employees involved in selling Mustangs to slaughter. What ended up happening was that the straw that finally broke the camel's back on this is that the grand jury put in a subpoena to count the number of horses in one of their holding facilities, and they were basically denied. Okay, a subpoena from a grand jury was denied, and the federal government basically went and through a variety of legal tactics and intimidation tactics, they went after the BLM law enforcement officers that had collected this information. Okay, they dismantled, and not one piece of that evidence was ever heard. And I still find this stunning. One of the most amazing things about it is the DOI's lawyer, one of the DOI's lawyer, actually argued the case that the practice of selling Mustangs to slaughter by BLM personnel was so common, it would be unfair to prosecute one or two individuals. Okay, so there was this huge thing with that. And the FBI got involved, Department of Justice got involved, Office of Inspector General got involved, and a big whitewash happened. And nothing, the whole thing was dismantled. The case was,
When was this?
The investigation ran from 1992 to 1996 when it was disbanded, okay? Up until that point in time, the BLM was required to submit to Congress every 2 years a report on the Wild Horse and Burro program. After this in 1996, the BLM has never again submitted a report to Congress, and Congress has not asked for one. Okay, so there's actually this history of it, and after all this dirt was starting to surface, this can of worms was starting to open, they slammed it shut, and nobody has looked at it since. And so instead of it becoming, coming to light, so there's a lot of history, at least, that leads one to believe, especially when you use that in conjunction with the way that they keep such an iron curtain on this program, that it's very possible horses and burros are disappearing into the night.
Well, I want to thank you